When you hear the word conflict, what's the first thing you think of? Neighbors bickering? Politicians pummeling each other on television? Scandals in the family? We used to fear conflict like a wild animal around the corner. It growls, breaks the furniture inside us, ruins relationships, burns bridges to the ground. Can it be otherwise? It's a strange thing. Man hates conflict, but he never grows without it. For it is in the cracks through which discontent bursts that new things sprout. Imagine a river that has been flowing for centuries in the same channel. One day it meets an obstacle, a rock whose boundaries look impregnable. This is a conflict. What does the river do? She doesn't beg the rock to leave. She sharpens it for years and wins. Today we'll look at the conflict together from a different perspective. Why is it so frightening? Why do we sometimes cling to quarrels like sharp hooks, hurting ourselves and others? And is it possible to learn how to pull out of any clash not pain, but meaning? You'll learn how conflict can reduce you to ashes or help you melt your fears into inner strength. Why sometimes it saves relationships and sometimes it becomes a nail in the lid of a friendship. And what you should do to avoid becoming a slave to someone else's or your own aggression. No formulaic count to 10 advice here. You already know how to do that. Instead, I want you to see that conflict is not only a battlefield, but also a workshop where you can hone your understanding of yourself and others. So don't run away from this beast. Better yet, learn to look it in the eye. That will be your real victory. You ready? Then watch to the end and try to find your truth about how to argue without destroying yourself. Sounds strange, doesn't it? We're used to thinking of conflict as dirt, scandal, and the breaking of ties. But if you dig deeper, it's healthy conflict that most often becomes the birthing chamber of change. Think about it. When people around you are always silent, nodding and agreeing, are you growing? Or are you slowly rotting away in a swamp of comfort and fake loyalty? History knows thousands of examples of great minds colliding head-on and producing brilliant ideas. Think of the dispute between Newton and Leibniz over the primacy of the discovery of mathematical analysis, or the fierce philosophical battles between Nietzsche and Wagner when brilliant books grew out of the ruins of friendship. Without the conflict, Picasso would not have surpassed his teacher, and Freud and Jung would not have separated, giving the world two views of psychoanalysis. You know what all these stories have in common? Each of the participants was not afraid to step into the ring. They chose to clash, sometimes painful, but always lively. The conflict was not for the sake of fighting, but for new meanings. This is what we often lack today. We choose comfortable silence over honest disagreement. Family sags, friends betray themselves, collectives rot from within, just so long as we don't fight. The philosopher Hannah Arendt said, "All truth is born out of the clash of opposites. In nature there is no life without friction. When the earth is pushed apart, mountains are born. When one is confronted with another opinion, depth is born. When you dare to disagree, you see the world wider than your little hole of beliefs for the first time." Conflict, if you're not afraid to live it honestly, helps you to test your values to see if you can live up to them. You come out of the argument different. Your worldview is broader, your spirit muscles stronger, your character sharper. That doesn't mean you should throw yourself into squabbles, but if you're forever avoiding any storm, you're growing a swamp in yourself where everything rots in silence. Conflict is not your enemy. It's your honest coach challenging you. Do you know exactly what you want? Are you willing to defend your truth? If yes, you grow. If no, you dissolve among other people's voices. So every time there's a clash in your life, don't run away, don't sag, take a closer look. Perhaps it is now that your inner rise to new heights begins. Before you blame the world, you should honestly ask yourself, where does this sharpness arise from within me? Who am I really shouting to? Conflict is not just a clash of words or fists. It is an ancient scar that each of us carries deep beneath our skin. Evolution has programmed us to survive, hit or run. This attitude has lived in us for thousands of years. Our ancestors didn't debate with the saber-toothed tiger. They escaped the jaws of the saber-toothed tiger, or they died. And so it is now. If our brain catches a threat, even if it is not a tiger, but a sharp word, a reproach, a look downward, the ancient beast in us turns on. Freud once wrote that man is a seething cauldron of displaced desires and fears. Conflict with another is often just a mirror. We see our own unresolved feelings in it. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of our personality that we don't want to recognize. For example, you may argue vehemently with a person, accusing them of being prideful, but you are actually inwardly afraid of your own insignificance. You raise war on the outside, so you don't have to hear the outcry on the inside. Paradox. The most violent conflict is not always where people fight. Sometimes war breaks out in silence, when you carry a grudge for years but don't dare speak up. The frozen lump of words, the unspoken why, and how could you? This invisible conflict is far more dangerous. It slowly eats away at both body and soul. So, where does the first impulse come from? From fear, from the inability to listen, from the habit of proving to yourself and others that you exist. Society teaches us from childhood, be strong, don't give in. The fighter is always right. But real strength is often not in striking first, but in asking yourself, why am I raising this sword? Sometimes the only way to get out of a fight is to see your shadow. It's not about weakness, it's about maturity. You don't renounce the fight. You just stop beating the reflection in the mirror. Have you ever noticed how someone inside you rises up as soon as you hear the word cross? It's not you, it's your ego rising to its full height. It's like a knight in rusty armor, but with a sharp sword ready to cut down anyone who dares to hurt your self-image. Lao Tzu said, "He who knows others is clever, but he who knows himself is wise. He who defeats others is powerful, but more powerful is he who has defeated himself." What does this mean to you? In the moment of quarrel, you are often fighting not for the truth. You are fighting for the image, the "I am right, I am stronger, I am smarter" picture. Your ego is so afraid of a crack that you sacrifice relationships, respect, even yourself for it. Why do you want to be right at all costs? Why this order of winner for nothing? Osho wrote that the ego is like a decrepit guardian at the gate of your consciousness. It feels that if you let the truth in, it will break down the walls. But those walls don't protect. They cut you off from intimacy, from understanding, from flexibility. Eastern sages taught, in an argument, he who can back down wins. But try saying that to your ego and it goes berserk. It wants triumph. It wants to hear, "You did good, you've done everybody." But is that real strength? Marcus Aurelius reminded us, we are angry not because of the words of others, but because of how we perceive them. See, the conflict is always within. Think about it. When you furiously chop down someone else's words in an argument, what are you defending? If your position is truly strong, why shout? If you are truly calm inside, why waste yourself shouting and rebuking? Your ego will whisper to you, "Don't you dare give in. If you give in, you're weak." But the truth is exactly the opposite. Giving in when you realize that your world is bigger than this petty battle is what strength is all about. Remember, the man who defeated others is the hero of the day. The man who defeated his ego is the hero of a lifetime. Look around you. Almost every great conflict begins not with rockets and guns, but with a small spark, a resentful us versus them. Politics, religious wars, family clans, corporate intrigue are all just different scenes in the same old play. Man seeks the enemy so that he does not seek the truth within himself. Why do some communities spend years building bridges after terrible disasters, while others spend centuries sharpening knives and teaching children to hate? Because collective conflict is a drug. It gives a sense of belonging. We're good, they're bad. It's a cheap ticket to the tribe, where you don't have to think for yourself. Just repeat the slogans, and you are yours. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "The more we deny the shadow in ourselves, the louder we hear its footsteps outside." So it is with the collective. When a group of people are unwilling to take an honest look at their fears and flaws, they project them onto outsiders. The convenient myth of the enemy removes responsibility. There is no need to ask, "Why am I so angry? Why are we so unhappy?" You can just say, "It's all them," and sleep well. Really? Except that this good night's sleep always ends in a new massacre. Look at history. For centuries, entire nations have destroyed their cities and their souls just to maintain the illusion that the enemy is somewhere outside. But the enemy is more often than not sitting inside, whispering convenient words to you. Don't change. Don't look in the mirror. Better yet, hate it. To go beyond me and him is to ask the scary question, what if I myself am part of this chain? What if without my anger, my dogmas, my resentments, this flame would go out? This question burns because it shatters the illusion of, we are clean, they are dirty. But only from those ashes grows another path, a path where conflict becomes a lesson, not a curse. Collective conflict can become a bonfire that purifies. But to do this, everyone must throw his fear, his pride, his desire to be right to the death into the fire. Only in this way is peace born, not on paper, but in hearts. Otherwise, we will continue to divide the world into our own and strangers will always come to us in dreams, reminding us, you never learned to listen. Do you know what great discoveries, coups in science, and bold paintings by artists who once spat in the face of conventional canons have in common? They are all children of conflict. History itself is a chain of clashes of ideas. Without conflict, you don't grow. You are frozen in your old form, like a pond that is overgrown with moss because no fresh stream enters it. Look at the life of a scientist who challenges an entire school of thought. Galileo once told the world, "The Earth is not the center of the universe." They wanted to burn him for that. But it was this crack in the foundations that ignited new generations of astronomers, engineers, philosophers. Conflict spawned a leap, not because Galileo shouted the loudest, but because he risked standing his ground when everyone stood against it. In art, it's the same picture. The Impressionists, when they first exhibited their smudges to the public, provoked laughter and fury. "This is not painting," shouted the academics. But who laughs now when looking at the works of Monet or Van Gogh? These stains broke the boundaries of the old. Conflict is what made the birth of a new beauty possible. Now bring this example back to yourself. You, too, are faced with contradictions from within. Your courageous thought rebels in you against your fear of being misunderstood. You want to say no, but the habit of pleasing is at your throat. This inner conflict is your chance to be different. You can suppress it and dissolve into the calm of the swamp, or endure it and grow. Conflict is your inner fuel. Rub it out, burn it out, melt it down. Because in the very tension between old and new, you find the strength that pulls you beyond the boundaries of comfort. It is not for nothing that Nietzsche said, "Man is a rope stretched between the beast and the Superman." Tout means in constant tension, in conflict with yourself and the world. Become that rope. Don't cut it for the sake of tranquility. Without a clash of viewpoints, you are doomed to be faceless agreement. Without an argument of ideas, you will not discover a block to be honed and polished. Learn to not just tolerate conflict. Learn to hear in it the call to evolve. Sometimes you have to decide not to be comfortable in order to be yourself. And perhaps tomorrow, your own heresy will become someone else's road to the unknown. Have you noticed how often people confuse conflict with war? For some, any disagreement is an excuse to hit hard. For others, it's an excuse to swallow a grudge and become a shadow of themselves. But conflict can also be a third option: art. Yes, that's right. The art of healthy disagreement. When you're not afraid to say, "I disagree," but you're not eager to gag your interlocutor either. When you argue not for the sake of arguing, but for the sake of growing the truth between you, like a tree that puts down roots in different directions. But, you ask, how is this possible? The answer is simple and complex at the same time. You need rules. Conflict without rules is like a fire in a field. It burns everything. Conflict with rules is like a campfire in the center of the camp. Warms and lights up faces rather than turning them to ashes. First rule: don't get personal. If you argue, argue to the point. Not, "You're stupid," but, "I think this idea is vulnerable here." Little difference? It's the difference between humiliation and development, between taking a shot and having a conversation. Second rule: say "I" statements. Sound corny? But try it yourself. Say not, "You always mess things up," but, "I feel angry when plans go awry." You'd be surprised how much strength and vulnerability hides behind that "I" at the same time. People hear you better when you don't wave your fists at their guilt, but reveal your truth. Third rule: listen to what's behind the words. Conflict is often just the tip of the iceberg. Behind rudeness may hide fear of being rejected. Behind aggression may be pain. If you learn to hear not only the words, but also the emotions behind them, you will become a guide. You will help the other person not drown in their own screaming. Fourth rule: know how to end an argument on time. There are conversations that are draining rather than fulfilling. In such, it is better to honestly say, "Let's come back to this when we cool down." A conflict that lasts forever ceases to be useful. It becomes a festering wound. The fifth point, and perhaps the most important: remember why you are arguing. If your goal is to defeat the other person, you will always lose. Even if you shut him up, even if he shuts up under your pressure, you deprive yourself of the main gift of conflict, and that gift is understanding yourself through the other. To train conflict is to learn to remain human where it is easiest to turn into a beast. And then your words become not weapons, but keys. Keys to the doors behind which growth, not new enmity, awaits you both. At the very end of this journey, I want to leave you with an image that may one day help you out in your most difficult moment. Imagine that conflict is a sharply sharpened knife. In the palm of your hand, it can be both a blade of destruction and a tool of creation. You can use it to wound, to chop, to scar someone else's soul, or on the contrary, to cut the ties of old illusions, to cut away all the unnecessary things that prevent you from being yourself. Look at any argument. There is always a choice hidden in it. Someone raises a knife to cut unity, to burn bridges, to wall himself off. The other, the one who knows how not to give in to anger, who breathes deeper, takes the same knife and uses it to cut a door in the locked wall. Conflict is not an excuse for resentment and revenge. It's a reminder: you're still alive. You're still capable of hearing another opinion, even if it scratches your ego. Even the dumbest conflicts can be turned into bridges. Maybe not right away. You may have to grit your teeth and take an honest look at yourself. Where are you fanning the fire yourself? Where are you building a concrete wall instead of a bridge? Sometimes a person carries around anger for so long that he doesn't notice that the conflict is no longer with others, but with himself. And the knife he wanted to defend himself with is now cutting his own heart time after time. But there is also a bright truth in this. Any sharp corner can be smoothed. Any wall can be broken through with a door. And you can learn to hold any knife in such a way that it reveals rather than harms. Conflict is not your enemy if you do not turn it into a weapon against all living things. Let this picture live inside you. Every time you feel anger, misunderstanding, disagreement building up, look into the palm of your hand. There's your knife. What are you going to do with it? Will you cut the last rope that binds you to the one you care about? Or will you find the courage to use it as a tool to clear the way for new meanings and new unity? Conflict is a knife. Conflict is a bridge. Conflict is a wall. But it is always up to you to decide who is the master of that blade. You know what the funny thing is? We often think that the world around us is being destroyed by wars, by arguments, by other people's anger. But more often, it's our inner cowardice that eats away at us. Our unwillingness to speak honestly, our inability to stand up for our boundaries, or our inability to stop and keep silent when words become weapons. Conflict is like fire. Fire can warm your hands on a cold night, or it can burn your whole house down. It all depends on whether you know how to control the flame within you. Not every cry is truth. Not every compromise is weakness. Not every walk away from a fight is defeat. But not every open confrontation is the path to liberation. Remember one simple thing. He who is not afraid of confrontation learns to hear both himself and others. He who knows how to recognize his mistakes and other people's pain will not leave a scorched earth behind. And maybe it is such people who change not only themselves, but also the world around them. So the next time you feel a storm boiling up inside, don't rush to quench it with other people's apologies or your own indifference. Look at the root. Maybe this conflict is your chance to become more honest, stronger, freer. Now I'm interested in hearing from you. What conflicts do you face most often? Do you know how to turn them into fuel for growth? Write about it in the comments. Let's light the fire of a frank conversation where no one is afraid to get burned. Maybe that's how we can learn to argue without hate and live without masks. If you liked this video and found it helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and share. Your support is inspiring and helps us continue to create the content we need. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.